Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I haven't made like a baby video, I feel like, or maybe I have, but just like a sit down baby video in a little bit. So that is what I wanted to do today. And this video is going to be about how I sleep trained my son. He is now 11 months old. He will be a year old October 10th. I cannot believe that a year has passed like this. It's so crazy. I feel like I just had him last month. But it's been so amazing to watch him grow and just to really go through every stage. People ask me what my favorite stage has been, and it's hard to say. I love the newborn stage. Like, the newborn stage is probably my favorite just because he was so little and just like cuddly, and it was really just like pure bonding moments. But as each stage goes on, like, I've enjoyed all of it. Seeing him become more aware of things and then being more independent and like walking and crawling and everything else has just been so cool, and his little personality is just the cutest thing in the world. But anyway, this video is about how I don't want to say sleep trained, because I really didn't do any sleep training methods, but I will explain how I got my son to sleep 12 to 13 hours a night and going to bed on his own without crying it out. We'll try not to make this a very like long video, but I am very detailed, so I want to like explain and share all of the things that worked for us. So first, I was home with my son for like the first 9 months of his life until he started daycare. I didn't really try to put a schedule in place because I really wanted to just soak in the moments of like bonding with him and just kind of going with the flow. It was my first baby. I just wanted to go with the flow and not really set like any schedule or anything like that, because we really didn't need to. Plus, we're in this pandemic. So breastfed him for 10.5 months. As you know, with breastfeeding, or if you don't know, like, I breastfed on demand. He barely used bottles. He only used bottles if like I had been drinking and I needed to use pumped milk, or if a babysitter was watching him, or like if his dad was watching him. I did not breastfeed him on a schedule. I just breastfed him whenever he desired to be breastfed, whether it was for nourishment or comfort. I will say that prior to him being born, when I was pregnant with him, I was like, you know, I'm gonna have him on a schedule. I read the book 12 Weeks of Sleep by 12 Weeks Old. I was pretty adamant about having him on a schedule and him sleeping in his own crib. I was like, he would not be sleeping in my bed. I did have a bassinet for him because at first I was like, he's gonna sleep in his crib. But then about a month or two before I gave birth, I was like, you know, I do want to get a bassinet because I'm gonna want him close to me the first few months. I'm not gonna want, like, if I need to just put him down, I'm not gonna want to like have to go in his room and be by himself in his room. I decided to get a bassinet, which I'm very glad that I did that, although he hardly ever slept in it. But I'm glad that I decided to make that choice in doing so. When he was in the hospital, obviously they like were very forward about us putting him in the bassinet when he was sleeping, more of like safety reasons within the hospital. So whenever he was in the hospital with us and he fell asleep, we would swaddle him and lay him down so then we could get rest too. But we did enjoy like a lot of skin to skin, and I breastfed him a lot in the hospital, and his dad had him a lot skin to skin. So once we got home, I would put him in the bassinet. He was sleeping there for a little bit. Sometimes I would put him in his crib, but he was like napping on me a lot. So, and that's what I wanted. I totally loved that. I would say about, so he was born in October, I would say about like a month into it, I started, when I would nurse him, I would fall asleep. Now, I would make sure that I was like in the middle of the bed, that there were like pillows around us, but not enough to where they could get on top of him or anything. I held him like in the football position, and I low-key, high-key felt guilty because I was like, I know that I'm not supposed to sleep in the bed with him and it's not safe and all these things that I had read about that, but that's what worked for us to get some sleep. Like, he wanted to nurse a lot. I needed rest. Like, I wanted to breastfeed on the breast, so it's not like, you know, his dad of course helped as much as he could, but in those first few months, it's like that contact with mom is so important. I started to kind of feel guilty that he was sleeping on me. Then it got to the point where he just started to sleep with us. Most of the times I wasn't even laying down. I was just like propped up in the bed and like holding him while he was asleep, or he fell asleep while latched on. And I actually found a page on Instagram called Hey Sleepy Baby. And after reading so much about safe co-sleeping, I started to realize that, especially as a breastfeeding mom, not saying that it's not the same benefits for non-breastfeeding moms, but just with that contact and on-demand nursing, a lot of breastfeeding moms were sleeping with their children and their babies. So just reading more about that and learning how to safely and effectively co-sleep, it really relieved that mom guilt of my baby sleeping in the bed with me. And I would still put him in the bassinet as much as I could, but the times that he would just be fighting the bassinet, I just put him in the bed with us. When he was 2 months old, I was just kind of like, you're sleeping with us. His dad was even like, you know, I understand, like, you know, baby's in the bed, this is what works for our family. We know we're gonna make sure that nothing happens to him, and that is what it was. So like I said, I started to research more on the safety of co-sleeping, and I also learned how common it was. Once my son turned 4 months old, we went to his pediatrician appointment, and she was like, you know, he's at the age now where you can start to try the cry it out method, or try sleep training. I wasn't very fond of the idea of cry it out, but she mentioned that like it was okay and like all these things. So I said, you know what, we'll give it a try. We tried it that night, and let's just say, long story short, it was not for us. His dad was not a fan of it. I couldn't stand to just hear my baby cry, and it's not like it was 10 minutes. Like, we really tried for over an hour, and he was starting to sweat from crying, and I just felt like this is horrible. He's still so fresh, like he's still only 4 months old, and it's so hard to just switch him from sleeping with us and being warm and cuddly all the time to just in your room. Dad was like, I'm not doing that cry it out, like it's not worth it, we're not doing that. So we decided that he would just continue sleeping with us, but I knew that I eventually wanted him to get into his own crib, but I didn't want to rush it. I decided like during his naps, I wouldn't keep him on me. I would put him down. So whether that was me laying in the bed and just laying him next to me, or putting him in his bassinet, or just laying him down in his crib sometimes, and just so that he could get used to being swaddled and napping. So I would say by like months 4, 5, 6, he was definitely napping in his crib. I ended up putting the bassinet away at like 4 or 5 months because I'm like, this thing doesn't get any use, it's just in the way. So I put that away, and what I would do was I would nurse him until he was full and fell asleep while I was rocking him, and then just lay him down. When he was about 6 months old, I started to notice that it was getting really hard to put him to sleep and for others to put him to sleep. Like, I would nurse him, and then he would still just not be very happy. Like, it was a long process of putting him to sleep. And then I even noticed it like when my mom, who's like amazing with him, it was hard for her to put him to sleep, and normally she didn't really have a lot of issues putting him to sleep. So I went to visit her in Indiana, and then I said when I come home, I'm gonna try something different for sleep because this is just not working. At that point, he was starting to not even care about his pacifier anymore. He only used the pacifier for like sleep. He never really used it any other time. He didn't care about the pacifier, so that wasn't working. And I just noticed that like our methods of, it was starting to like become overwhelming trying to get him to fall asleep. And then when he would fall asleep, he would only fall asleep for like 2 hours. And so like he had to be on me. He wanted to just nurse all the time. And then it got to the point where when I was laying with him in the bed, he just wanted to be attached to me 24/7 throughout the night, to where I could not even sleep effectively. So I'm like, okay, something has to change. This is not working for me. I always want to be the best mother for my son, and a part of that is for me to get rest. So we got to switch things up. There's a page, a woman that I follow on Instagram, and our babies are about a month apart, less than a month apart. I've been following her since she was pregnant, and she mentioned the same issues, how her son it was starting to get harder for him to go to sleep, and how like he always wanted to be attached to her, and like the bouncing and the rocking just like wasn't working anymore. So I'm like, wow. So I actually reached out to her, and she's an influencer, but she responded right back to me, and I reached out to her because she had started working with a sleep trainer for gentle sleep training methods, and she was saying how she noticed results within like the first 2 days. So I'm like, if we were dealing with the same things and now like you've noticed some results, like I'm down to try it. So basically what it was that we did was I would nurse my son in the rocking chair and just kind of rock him, get him calmed down. Sometimes he would fall right asleep, sometimes he wouldn't. I would lay him down in his crib, and I would pat his back. If he was awake still, I would pat his back and just go like shh, shh. And after doing that for 15 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on the day, he would fall asleep. So after he would fall asleep, I would leave his room, and I noticed that the first time he slept for like 4 hours, the next night he slept for like 3 hours, and then I would nurse him again and I would lay him back down. So that is what we did. The initial time, it would be long. Sometimes I knew I would be in his room for like 30 to 40 minutes, but I was not giving up. Like, and he would sometimes be crying, or he would just be looking like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? But I always just shh. It's okay, Drew, mommy's here, it's okay. And Mario did it too sometimes, especially when I was gone. He would do the same thing. He would lay him down, because I said in order for this to work and be a success, we have to be consistent and be on the same page, which is like a great dynamic that my husband and I have. Whatever I want to do that's like effective for our family, he's like, I'm with it, what do I need to do? So he will be in here like shh. And even the times that he noticed that if I was in here for like 30-45 minutes and Drew was not falling asleep, he would even come in here and switch with me so that I could get a break and just shh. So we did that, and that was working. We noticed that he would start to sleep longer. So then what we would do is, say he slept for like 4 hours, then I would just bring him into our room. That was in the beginning. Once he would wake up and feed, I would then lay him back down and do the same thing all over again. And it doesn't matter how many times he woke up that night, I would do that, because I started to notice that the times that I would take him back to our room, he wouldn't sleep right. Like, he likes to toss and turn and be on his belly and be on his back, and obviously when he's sleeping with us, I would have him like cradled in, so like he couldn't do that. So I'm like, you don't even like sleeping in here anymore. So I would put him in his crib. So that is what we did to start. I started to notice that the more that we were doing that, he started to sleep longer in his crib. And also I did the same thing for naps. I did the shh, laid him down, but I didn't have to do that every single time, because the times that he was just like super tired, I could nurse him and lay him down, and that is what worked. I would say around 7.5, 8 months, time decreased tremendously to like 5 to 10 minutes, and it would only be maybe like 2 wake ups throughout the night. So that worked, and I knew that was okay, because like baby still woke up to eat, especially like breast milk during the time. So I was okay with waking up, because I was getting longer periods of sleep, and my husband and I got our bed back, so I was okay with that. I would say about 9 months is when I started to notice that he did not like to really be rocked anymore. Say about 9 months, I noticed that he would eat on the breast and then he would get off and fall asleep on his own. So I was like, oh, okay, like you're learning how to fall asleep on your own. Like he would eat and he would get off, and then I would just kind of rock him and his eyes would just close, and then I would lay him down. So I'm like, okay, you're starting to learn how to fall asleep on your own. So that was some really good insight. Like, I really paid attention to my baby. I just followed his cues and like didn't really press anything and just went on his schedule, and that really helped us. I started to notice around 9 months he didn't want to be rocked, so I would just kind of like sway him back and forth, make sure he was asleep, and then I would lay him down. For naps, it was starting to get a lot easier too. So then around like 9.5 months, I started to really notice that he was starting to sleep way longer. Like, he wouldn't wake up until like 4 o'clock in the morning. So then I would feed him, put him back, he would sleep until 7. So that was amazing to get that. Then I started to notice after he ate, he didn't even want me to like hold him. So I'm like, okay, do you want to just go lay down in your bed? So I would just lay him down in his bed, pat his back a little bit like before he falls asleep, but it will only be like 5 minutes. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just take this rocking chair out of your room, because one, it was starting to make me nervous because he would like walk around it and he's learning how to walk, so he would like fall, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're gonna hit your head on those legs. So I'm ready to get this thing out of here. So I ended up getting him like a dinosaur chair, like beanbag that he loves. But anyway, I took the rocking chair out. I'm like, okay, we're done rocking you. At this point, around 10.5 months, I was starting to no longer breastfeed him. I was trying to wean him. So I began giving him bottles, and I noticed that I would give him his bottle, he would drink it, and then I would lay him down. I would leave the room for like 5 to 10 minutes, and he would fall asleep on his own. So I was like, hold on, this is a game changer. Like, you just fell asleep on your own without me in your bed. So once I noticed that he did that, I started to expand upon that. So I would give him his bottle, put him in the bed, sleep within 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes it took longer, maybe like 20 minutes, but I would never let it go like over 20 minutes. I would just let, and it wasn't even like just wah, wah, wah. Like, he would be sitting down just like wah, wah, and then he would lay down and he would get back up, wah. So it wasn't just like continuous crying for 20 minutes. Like, I knew he was sleepy and he'd just be sitting there like rubbing his eyes and couldn't barely stay up. So that is what I did. And I think I noticed that he could do that because one time he was crying and I checked his camera and he was like sitting down crying, and then I didn't hear him anymore. So I'm gonna give it 5 minutes. I didn't hear him anymore and he fell back asleep. So I'm like, oh, this is everything. So around 10.5 months, I went on vacation and he stayed with my mom for a week. I told her, like, you know, he can fall asleep on his own if you just give him a minute. So she did that and he slept 12 hours straight. So at this point, he was sleeping 12 to 13 hours straight. I put him down around that point 7. He'd wake up around 7:15, 7:30, sometimes around like 6:30, and I would just get him up for the day. So fast forward, now he is 11 months old, and our routine is, we have like an actual routine, and it is the most amazing thing ever. So we do bedtime, we do story, I give him a bottle while I'm reading his story, and then I give him a hug, I lay him in his crib, I turn on his white noise, turn on his humidifier, say goodnight, I love you, and I leave the room. And 9 times out of 10, he goes right to sleep within 2 to 3 minutes. I lay him down on his back, he rolls over on his belly, and he's asleep. Sometimes he does wake up only 1 time a night. And that's maybe like 2 or 3 nights out of the week. He'll wake up around like midnight or 4 a.m. It really just depends. And I go downstairs, I get him a bottle, I give it to him. He drinks it and falls right back asleep, and then I come in his room and I just grab the bottle out of the bed. Since he started daycare, the days that he comes home from daycare, he is exhausted. So on those days, he tries to go to bed earlier because they only take 1 nap a day at daycare, and at home he takes 2. He's so tired. Sometimes he falls asleep at 5:30. But I've noticed that when he does fall asleep at 5:30, he still will wake up at 7 o'clock. If he falls asleep at 9 o'clock, he's not waking up at 9 o'clock. He's gonna still wake up at 7 o'clock. Sometimes he wakes up at 8. A couple nights ago, he slept from 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. That was amazing. So I still wake up earlier than him. Like, I try to wake up around 6, 6:30. If he does wake up before 6, I would say if he wakes up before like 6:30, I'll give him a bottle, and then he'll lay back down and go to sleep for another hour or so. But if he wakes up after 6:30, like 6:30, 6:45, 6:50, I just get him on up for the day, because now his bedtime is about 6:30. He goes to sleep every night around 6:30. It's nice if he does go to sleep around 7, because he will, I know for sure he's gonna sleep till at least 7. Last night he went to bed at 6:50 and he woke up today at 7:30. The past 2 nights he did not wake up at all. That is my experience on gentle sleep training. It's so amazing to have my bed back with my husband. It is so great. We both are sleeping so much better. Drew is sleeping so much better in his own crib, and he's really on a schedule, and it's nice because there's some predictability, especially after, you know, like the newborn phase and all that, but also everyone sleeps better. He's happier during the day. He is more like joyful and playful. He's not cranky. He does take 2 naps during the day when he's at home. He takes a nap like about 2 hours after he first wakes up for about an hour, and then he takes a nap about 2 or 3 hours after that for about an hour, hour and a half. And that is great as well. I do give him more milk in the morning, because especially if he slept the entire night, I give him like 6 to 8 ounces, because I know that he is probably really hungry, and it gives me a chance to like get breakfast ready or get him ready to go to daycare where he'll eat breakfast. He is still under a year old, so milk is still like his primary source of nutrition. That is how I got my baby to sleep 12 to 13 hours a night at 10 months old. I will say that the biggest thing that I've learned thus far as a parent, for me, that works for me, my family, is that you really have to, 1, trust your instincts. I feel bad that I even had mom guilt for my son sleeping with me, because like in a lot of other cultures, that's like a normal thing, and it felt right for me. I felt safe. I didn't feel like I was putting my baby at harm. My husband didn't feel that way, and that is how we all got sleep, and we were sane. People were like, oh, he's never gonna get out the bed if he sleeps with you. Our baby was out of the bed at 7 months. So, and like, why is that a negative thing all the time? You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever works for you and your family, go with that. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we did start out with putting him in his crib at all naps. I know they say that naps are harder than nighttime because of like the serotonin that helps him go to sleep at night, but we definitely, like at naps, I at least tried. And if he fought me on it, as when he was a younger baby, I would like take him out and do more things to help him get to sleep. But I at least tried so that he could get used to it. Another thing is follow your baby. You know, unless you really have to put them on a schedule, then of course do whatever you need to do. that works for you. For me, I didn't need to be on a schedule with him. I just followed his lead, and I'm learning that with a lot. It says like, oh, they should be doing this at this age, or oh, you can do this at this age. Your baby may or not be ready for that. And our pediatrician recommended sleep training at 4 months. Our son was not ready for that. And just give yourself grace. That is like the biggest word in life for me, is just to give yourself grace. Like, it is okay. You're learning, you're figuring it out. You don't have all the tools. It is an everyday process, and things change all the time. So just follow your own lead of your baby, trust your instincts, and give yourself grace. And that is all that I have. So if you like this video and want more baby videos, let me know in the comments. Give this video a big thumbs up, please. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. You can also check out my other baby videos. I have a lot more content coming, so I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Bye.